Welcome to Word Alive with Fidelia. Thank you for tuning in. My talk today is titled Walk on Water. We all know that water is liquid and not solid surface, so it's difficult to walk on top without drowning. You can swim in the ocean or pool, but cannot walk steadily on top of the deep waters. However, in the Gospel of Matthew 14, from verses 22 through 34, it was recorded that shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to his disciples. He was like walking on the lake and was walking on the waters. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified because that's impossible. They said, "Look, it's a ghost," they said, and they cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." But Peter asked, "Lord, if it is you, tell me to come to you on the waters," just to prove that it was. And Jesus said, "Come." He invited him to come over. Then Peter got down out of the boat. He walked on the water and came towards Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and began to sink. He cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hands and caught him and said to him, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. So those who were in the boat, they worshipped him and said, "Truly, you are the Son of God." So quickly, a couple of things I want to bring out here. Firstly, Jesus walked on the water, even with the wind, meaning that in our lives, we might be faced with a raging storm, where we might be expected to walk on waters as well, which is impossible. But we must remember that if Jesus is with us, then we do not have to be afraid. He says, "Fear not, and do not be afraid, for he will make the shaky storm steady for us to walk through." Just like he did at the Red Sea. That song says, "You split the sea so that I can walk right through it. My fear you drown in perfect love." We have all had difficult situations that, in the reality, there couldn't be a way out, but just for the grace of God that we didn't get crushed. When a child have a nightmare and he wakes up to find he's in the arms of his loving parents, he will be reassured and the fear cast away. So secondly, the disciples, they didn't even recognize that he was the one walking on the lake. They said the person must be a ghost. But meanwhile, they had just left him to be by himself. So, how often we too do not tend to see or recognize Jesus in our fears, in our trials and temptations, or during the time of our need? We quickly forget that Jesus is there with us. We think he's far away, and then we choose to do things our way without trusting him with it. Then another thing to bring out is our response to faith when put to the test. Do we panic? For sure, most of us do. I do. If the disciples could panic even when Jesus was among them, how much more? We too. Remember, when Jesus was with the disciples and the boat was almost drowning, remember they woke him up and said, "Lord, don't you care that we perish?" He responded the same way he did when he walked on the water by saying, "O ye of little faith." Verse 28 of the same Matthew Peter asked Jesus, tell me to come to you on the water, if it is you. That's already doubt. Come, Jesus said. And as he got out of the boat, he walked on the water and came towards Jesus. Imagine, because Peter trusted solely with no reservation that it was Jesus, he did exactly what Jesus did, walked on water as well. That's impossible for him to do. But what happened? Immediately, Peter shifted his focus from Jesus and focused his attention and his fear on the external forces and challenges around him. In this case, of course, he was afraid of the wind. Only then he started to sink and he cried out, Lord, save me. Immediately Jesus reached out his hands and caught him and said, again, you of little faith, why did you doubt? You were doing it before. Now you shifted your focus from me, and that's when you started sinking. But isn't that true of us as well? When faced with difficult situations, even when we have had testimonies of God's interventions in the past, yet when faced with new battles, we freak out and panic, forgetting the miracles of the past, just like the Israelites did. We panic even after we have prayed. I think the reason for this is that we want answers right away as issues come up and in our own timing and our own ways. But sometimes we might be lucky. It works out that way, but most times, God has his own ways and his own timing, which is always the best in the end. It's never too late. Our faith also is not strong enough, and that's why there's always iota of doubt to creep in. So if our faith is not strong enough, we allow little doubt to creep in. And you know that faith and doubt never works together. The catalyst to answered prayers is unimaginable and unwavering faith. Remember, faith is not what has happened, but faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, which makes believing difficult when needed. So no wonder Jesus said, faith as little as a mustard seed could move our mountains, because he knew during our trials that that's all we need to work with. And he knows our human phrases that we could be doubtful, just like Thomas and Peter did. So may we remember and be encouraged today that in any problem we are faced with, that Jesus still speaks from the place of our chaos, right in the middle of our storms, and never far away, nor will he leave us alone. Gold is not perfect until it has gone through severe fire. Same it is with faith. Faith is not genuine or confirmed until it has been tested during the difficult times. When all is well, it is easy to recite our faith. But what about the challenging times when it is most needed? Isaiah 43:2-3 says, just to encourage you, hear this. It said, when you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. Why? He said, because for I am the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, your Savior, will be with you. Amazing. Very reassuring. So, my brothers and sisters, it is my prayer that the good Lord grant us increased faith, such that will be unwavering, such that could withstand the test of time, like the house built on the solid foundation that can withstand any storm of life. I pray that for us today, including myself. I need it. Thank you so much for listening. I'm wishing you all a blessed week.